I'll intro you guys.
Are you? Okay, you're recording? Hang on, I brought things.
Food, science, and you.
It's a little different than what you advertise, but I don't have any pens, but if you want a pen,
Yeah,
things
we
to
got
write
pens.
on.
Michael, you want to grab some pens?
There you go.
Are you guys standing or
I was gonna
sitting
say,
tonight?
is this musical chair?
No, however you want. We
So,
just
like,
gonna whip
I don't
them
want
all
any of
together.
these options. Oh, did I just say
Sit on the table, sit on the chair.
You just can't sit on that one because
You
that's where
may.
the camera is.
Yeah.
We're gonna move.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
We're gonna move.
Do you want to sit next to him? Because then you gotta pull your chair.
Oh,
Look
no.
at for two tiny butts, so that's good.
We can grab some clipboards too.
Alright.
Okay.
This shirt does make me feel very svelte.
Well, we still got some more people coming, but
That's okay.
thank you all for being here. Winnie and Dan for your time and resources, and
Yeah.
thank you
I'm excited.
to those of you who have joined us. It was Nick, right? Okay. And to all of you who are watching this recording, because this is going to be awesome. And I'm sad that you're missing out in person, but you should be grateful that I'm recording this.
There's a lot
but
of awesome food over there.
tonight, we're going to be talking about not only just food, but the science behind food and diets and some of the myths and legends.
Yes.
But really,
True.
I know for myself, being in the the health world, diets can get confusing. So I'm excited that you guys are here to talk about that. And are we going to be eating tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
So many foods.
So for
Yeah.
those of you watching this, feel free to share this because this is going to be, we're going to be diving into some science, really important topic when it comes to just feeling empowered. So I met Winnie almost 3 years ago.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she's done a class here before, so I'm grateful that you guys get to be in her energy and presence. But I will pass it off to you guys.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, you guys. Thank you for coming. What I want to talk about today is really food, your life health choices, and I call it healthier choice because no matter how healthy we think we are, I always think that there can be a step up to be healthier, right? And my friend Dan here is a crazy scientist, is amazing. So he's gonna like get into the details of the science behind eating.
Mad scientist?
Yeah, maybe. And then also, you've heard a lot about diets that are out there today, and some are actually not as healthy as what you think, or there are options to make that diet very unhealthy. So over here on the table, we actually brought things that are vegan. We brought things that are very popular in the keto diet world. But what we did is we broke it up into unhealthy vegans. You see Oreo and apple juice. Healthy vegans, hummus, make it yourself, but I bought it this time. And apples, fruit. And then healthy keto is salmon. We actually have a slab of salmon over here for everyone to eat later. And berries. And then unhealthy is that high processed, high sugar, but still meat and dairy products. That would be your unhealthy keto. So let's get into that a little bit more.
Yum.
Yeah.
Sorry, you guys, but live viewers get all this yummy food.
All right, so what we're going to talk about today is my awesome friend Dan, my journey to becoming healthier, the food choice lowdown, a couple things that are pretty popular in the news right now, chemistry of food in the body. Sugars are crap. It is my favorite quote that I heard this year, and it was by a man that owns an organic whole food plant-based company, and it's calorie rich and processed.
Wait.
That's what it means.
Before we continue, I forgot to do this. I always like to ask people who haven't been to events or coming to new events, what inspired you to come to this one? Why are you here?
Always knowledge.
Love it.
Food.
I'm here because I like to be here.
Yay, no, that's why I'm here. Well, and actually we're going to give you some resources and some takeaways, but honestly, I am not an expert in anything. I am the same. I met Mel about 3 years ago, and I am actually just love what she's done for me, my family, my health has gotten so much better since I met her and just started learning, doing all the research. And so I'm just here to plant seeds in your mind of maybe something you haven't thought of before, and that's all I'm here to do. So take it as you will. Go find out more. Teach me something the next time we learn. I will love it next time we meet. So anyway, I kind of headed up a lot of these from a menu kind of thing. Friends are food for the soul. So I want to introduce you to my friend Dan. Dan Morton has, I've known him for what, 20 some years?
You have to make the camera taller.
He's got a BS in chemistry and statistics. He is a certified industrial hygienist, and that doesn't mean he cleans teeth, which I thought was a funny joke he put on there. But an industrial hygienist is really the art of applying technical principles in a manner that provides a reasonable solution for workplace health and safety issues. So not only to be certified in this, not only do you have to have a high level of education, you have to have years of broad experience in industrial hygiene, and then you have to take an exam. You even have to apply to take an exam, and if they accept you, you go in there, you take a 5-hour-long test, and about 30% pass. I think it says 50 there, but it's actually only 30% pass. So Dan is a certified industrial hygienist.
Yay.
And he is also on the National Registry of Advanced Emergency Medical Technicians. So he is a federal EMT. If something happens like 9/11, they call him, he goes, and he works on behalf of the U.S.
Thank you.
He's a skydiver. He's an instructor. He's got nearly 4,000 jumps. Baldwin, Wisconsin, if anyone's interested.
Yes! Oh, that's right, skydived.
Excellent.
Yeah. With Gino.
Gino.
Yeah.
That was a while ago then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, yeah.
Gino's
I love it.
That's awesome.
Voracious reader, he tried to get me to narrow this down, but this is what I could narrow it to, right? And his favorite quote of all time is, "All things are poison, and nothing is without poison, including water," right? Too much water, you're gonna drown.
Yeah.
And only the dose makes the poison. So as a chemist myself, that's what I work with all the time, is the dose makes the poison. And that's true for most things in life, right? So my healthy options, like what led me to where I am today? Very interesting. I had a lot of physical problems, if you will. I was pretty unhealthy in a lot of ways. I had abdominal pain and intestinal tract issues. I had skin rashes, and I had bumps all over the place, dry, flaky, allergy symptoms after I ate. I had muscle pain, joint pain, and it was all different. I would go to doctors and they would never link them together. But after I found out what my issue was, which was a food allergy, interesting enough, high fructose corn syrup mimics liver failure, which not too many people talk about. All the doctors ever told me was that it was my age, the fact that I didn't exercise, my genetics, you know, how old I am, the fact that I had kids, lifestyle, I drank a lot, I didn't run, I did all these things. But bottom line, it was my diet. It wasn't any of those things as much as it was my diet. So what I learned through this process was my body gives me clues to my positive health state just as much as it does my negative health state, right? So we got to learn to pay attention. All right, so diet options. So this is how I started my path to diet options. How can this be? This is a picture of 3 very popular diets that you hear about all the time. Vegan, whole food, plant-based, keto. There it is. Now, my daughter, she's supposed to be here. Her grandparents went on a diet where they could eat bacon but not carrots. Right away, Kellyanne went, I don't think that's right. But Dan will talk about the science of that. And if we want to go back up here, the one on the left is a vegan diet. Accidentally vegan is what they want to call it. Yeah, right.
Okay.
But they're all vegan, right? And in the middle, that's also a keto, but more or less a vegan diet, whole food, plant-based, and then on the right is your keto diet, okay? So, wrestling with the food, I call them food lifestyle choices, because really things are a lifestyle. So I kind of got that boxing ring going in there, because it's almost like you're getting beat up trying to figure out what these things are about. So you got vegan, keto, whole food, plant-based. But if you look behind the choices, vegan is typically a do no harm kind of lifestyle. It is about the food, but when it's about the do no harm, that's when you can eat the unfrosted Pop-Tarts, the Oreos, which we have over there, right? You're not hurting an animal, but you're not really being healthy either, right? Keto diets are about eliminating things from your diet, right? Whole foods is about reducing those highly processed and refined foods. And then plant-based is really about health, okay? So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So here you go. So vegan, keto, we've all heard about these diets, right? And if you look at the pictures down below, they both have the healthy and the unhealthy. An unhealthy vegan will eat a lot of processed foods, a lot of sugar, Oreos, Pop-Tarts, chips. Everything in this picture here is accidentally vegan. It's crazy, but if I look at this, almost everything in this picture, sodas, chocolate, Hershey's chocolate syrup, it's full of corn syrup, right? It's just colored corn syrup, and I would not be. Yeah, it's pretty funny, right? A healthy vegan diet is really your plant-based direction, right? Keto diet is the meats and the proteins, the dairy, stuff like that. No carbs, low carbs. But a healthy keto diet is what lean meats, low or no carb vegetables, low sugar, high fiber fruits, good fats, oils, and nuts. Unhealthy is your processed meats, your high protein, a lot of protein, not good for you. Dairy, low or no fruits or vegetables. Now this just doesn't sound right to me. So what we have over on the table, like I said, we have hummus and apples. That is your healthy vegan. We have salmon and raspberries, which is your healthy keto. And we also have, cream cheese and Jimmy Dean sausage, which is your unhealthy keto.
But it tastes so good.
I know, but we all get to eat them. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, you get to eat that however you wish. And I kind of want to see where everyone goes to, right? All right, so the next is Dan. He's going to start talking about chemistries of why these are good and bad.
Yay. So, food chemistry, we have a balanced diet, only basically has 3 things in it. Now, there's a whole bunch of other chemistry stuff that goes into this, but you have fats, you have proteins, and you have carbs. Those are basically the 3 things that you look at. So, of all these foods, the fat and cholesterol you need because those are the building blocks for all of your hormones in your body. You're going to be using cholesterol and fats to build all those hormone molecules. You're going to be using the protein is going to be broken down by your gut into amino acids. The amino acids we hear are the building blocks of new protein. So your body will take all those amino acids and put them all back together and build new muscle, new tissue, new fascia. It will build new bits and pieces of your body. And then finally the carbohydrates, those are the energy. That's the gas. So the fat, if you have no carbohydrates, your body will use fat. But if you have a full balanced diet and you get too much fat, what happens to the fat? It just comes out. The fat goes out. Remember when they had Olean and Olustra on the market? What was the major complaint about that stuff?
Urgency.
Yes, or anal leakage was the big thing. So if you have a full diet, your body much prefers to use carbs rather than fat. So the fat will go to producing all these things, and if you have extra fat, the fat leaves you. Fat does not make you fat, per se. So the protein, if you have too much protein in your system, if you're just eating a ton of protein, your body has to do something with it. It floats around in your bloodstream until it can be processed. Your kidneys have to go to work overtime to filter out that extra protein. It was one of the major problems with the original Atkins diet. So Dr. Atkins did a lot of work with his diabetic patients, but he found, and the problem with Dr. Atkins is he didn't do any studies, any double-blind studies, any good science. He was just working anecdotally with all of his patients. He said, so when I have patients that eat a lot of meat and fats and proteins, they tend to lose weight. Go figure. So we find out later during the keto diets that there's a reason for that, but we'll get into it. So the problem was that he advocated eating a lot of just straight proteins, straight fats, which ends up basically hurting your system because you have to filter all those out in your kidneys. Finally, the carbohydrates are our energy source. If we get too many carbohydrates though, and we don't need all that energy, our body just says, well, I got a lot of carbohydrates, I'm gonna store those. That's what is making us fatter. Let's see, does that one work? That one works. So, food pyramid. The original food pyramid that was promulgated by the FDA started out with, you need to have a bunch of carbohydrates, you need a little less protein, and you need very little fat. And if you do one of the books that we have at the end here, looks into where that came from, and the sugar lobbies and the people that were trying to basically say, well, sugar we know and carbohydrates we know have a tendency to make us fat, so we need to vilify something. So we'll say that fat makes us fat, so eat very little fat. Eat a lot of carbs, eat medium protein, eat very little fat. Well, if you flip that pyramid around, we end up with eating not so many carbs. We're trying to reduce all the carbs at the bottom. So we're trying to not really get rid of them, we just want to reduce them, keep them at a low level, but we want to feed our body with the things we need for those building blocks. So the carbs are just the energy. We need the fat and the protein to use as building blocks for our system. So we start out with smaller nuts and berries, a little bit more of the vegetables, a little bit more of the oils, and a larger portion of the proteins, which once again are the building blocks for all the proteins in our body, whether it's myocardial protein or muscle protein or smooth muscle protein, skin, tendons, etc. All that is going to come from protein-based stuff. Now, if you're a vegan, we throw this little line in here that says this is kind of where you stop. So you would not do the cheese and the eggs and the butter, but you would do the oil and all the vegetables up from here. The problem with the 100% vegan diet is just getting the protein. So you have to be very vigilant about getting extra protein into your diet, nut protein, soy protein, the seitan protein, all the different proteins to still get enough of those building blocks in there to make sure that you're maintaining your muscle. So I have a very good friend that's a vegan, and the veganism seems to be more of a religion for her. She's been doing it for 14 years, and doesn't basically put it off anybody who doesn't follow what she wants to follow, but she's very, very reticent to let go of any of that. So she wants to make sure that she's not doing any harm to the animal kingdom. It's like she doesn't eat honey because that comes from bees. She doesn't want to be taking something away from the bees. Anyway, so to get back into that vegan diet, we would start at this line and we would go up. And we can maintain a good healthy diet as long as we're very vigilant about getting those good proteins into our system. So how do we use food? We intake food, goes into our gut. Our gut is going to tear it down into those building blocks, the fats, proteins, and carbs. So the fats and proteins are the building blocks. And the carbs are that primary fuel. That's what's going to be used to fuel the engine, fuel all of us as we go around. And the carbs, no matter what they are, the different starches, the different sugars, all need to eventually be turned into glucose. Glucose is our fuel. That's what we burn. So our chemistry set sits right here. Our liver does all of that work. It changes all that stuff. Our brain does some. There are other small parts of our body, but our liver does a lot of that work. So yeah, grabbing that liver right there. So the thing that's going to work on that sugar, however, is insulin. So insulin is a hormone made with those nice fats and cholesterols. As our body turns everything into glucose, the glucose floats around in our system. It will continue to float around in our system and won't go anywhere. It won't help us out. It won't get into any cells. It won't do any work. It won't work as any fuel until we have insulin in our body. Insulin is the key that moves the sugar from the bloodstream into the cell. So insulin moves that in. As soon as we have insulin, it goes in and the cells can start doing their work. Without insulin, it sits there and floats around. This is the definition of diabetes. So diabetes type 1 is somebody that doesn't make any insulin. Usually comes on in childhood. So your pancreas just quits making insulin, boom, your sugar starts to go up and up and up. You get sicker and sicker and sicker until the doctor finally figures it out, and then you're going to be taking insulin for the rest of your life. Type 2 diabetes is usually considered insulin resistance. So people that aren't watching their diet, that are sedentary, that eat a lot of crappy food, put on a lot of weight. As they get more food in, their body releases insulin. They get more food in, their body releases insulin. Finally, their body gets to a point where it doesn't see this insulin, almost like a heroin addict. Got to take more, got to take more, got to take more. The insulin, your body becomes resistant to the insulin. So you'll see people that are type 2 diabetics that now have to take more insulin than their pancreas can actually manufacture to get that energy into their cells to keep themselves going. So what happens, however, without insulin is we end up with all that extra sugar piling up in our bloodstream. So the body, when it sees sugar coming in, your pancreas looks at that and goes, whoo, here comes food. I need insulin to get that food into my cells. So it releases a big squirt of insulin. You have an insulin spike. There's too much glucose floating around. That insulin comes in and it says, oh, here, I'm going to get you into the cells. The cells all of a sudden say, I'm full. I don't need any more. We're not doing any exercising. We're not doing anything, but I got a ton of food. I got a ton of insulin. This insulin wants to take it into a cell. Well, there's a bunch of cells called adipose tissue, or fat cells. So it takes and puts it in there. It needs to put it somewhere. So it's going to take and feed all that into the adipose tissue, and so that's where all that carbohydrate sugar is going to go. So carbohydrates in general are all the things that end in ose. So these are the sugars. So we have glucose. This is the main one that our body functions on. Dextrose is another name for it. You may hear that. On an ambulance, if I have somebody that's in a diabetic emergency, their sugar is super, super low, I will give them D50, 50% dextrose in water. So dextrose comes from corn. It's one of the products of corn. It's basically glucose. So glucose is in your body. Dextrose is exactly the same thing, just made externally. It's artificially made as opposed to made from your system. Fructose, we've all heard about this. We're going to get into fructose a little bit. Fructose is the primary sugar that's in fruit. Glucose is a 6-membered ring. Fructose is a 5-membered ring. A little bit different. Then we have galactose. It's the standard sugar that's in milk along with lactose. So we have a monosaccharide that's just a 6-membered ring. Once again, it's a little bit different orientation, however, than the glucose. They look a little different. So disaccharides, sucrose is the one that people have most heard about. That's table sugar. So that's 2 6-membered ring, or it's a 5-membered and a 6-membered that are stuck together. Okay? And that's table sugar. All of these things taste sweet, that's why we use them. Lactose is the other milk sugar. It's 2 6-membered rings stuck together. And then maltose, if you've done any beer drinking, it's the malty flavor from malted milks. Once again, that's the product of yeast. It's a yeast, when the yeast goes and metabolizes that stuff, it makes it. So all these are sugars, but the only one your body uses is glucose. So all the others, you have to change. So when I get them in, they're carbohydrates. I can use them like crazy, but they have to make a spin through my chemistry set. They got to make a spin through my liver, and my liver will crack them down and twist them around. It'll turn the 5-membered into a 6-membered. It'll take the 2 6-membered and snap them apart. It'll do all this work and change them all into glucose. And there, my liver is going to work for me, and now, boom, I can use all those carbohydrates. So, what is the devil? Back to Winnie's portion and her allergy to high fructose corn syrup. So,
Mimics liver failure, really, and I didn't know why it did, but now I do. There you go.
So what's happening is none of those other sugars, you're looking at, I have 6 of them up there, only one of them can you use. All the others have to be worked on. But your body recognizes them all as carbs, as sugars. So as soon as you get a big dose of that high fructose corn syrup, your body goes, hoo-hoo, sugar, yee-haw, and it releases a big shot of insulin. Well, your body can't use that 5-membered ring, so it floats around in your body, and now you have all that insulin going, I need something to work on. So it's going to work on the sugar that's in your bloodstream, it's going to work on the sugar that your liver has a small supply, or you're going to get hungry because you need to use up that insulin on some sugar. Now, it's taking that high fructose corn syrup, it's running through your chemistry set, and it's popping it out the other side as nice glucose that you can use. All of a sudden you need more insulin. So your body says, oh, look at that, I see more sugar. Let's release some more insulin. Let's get that back out there to take care of that sugar. So you're getting kind of a double whammy from the high fructose corn syrup. It's very sweet. It's super, super cheap. They can produce it like crazy. So it's a wonderful sweetener. It's a wonderful filler. It goes into all sorts of stuff. Yet that's why it ends up being the devil in your system. So ends up with an insulin spike, and then it's et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It just keeps on going around. So the devil is this guy, but also the devil
It's not Kellyanne.
is not Kellyanne. And she's so tiny, she fits in the same chair. But these things are also items that we're trying to remove from our diet. So we're trying to remove these calorie-rich but low-fiber foods. So this would be like the apple juice. One of the things that helps protect us from insulin spikes is fiber. Anything that will help the material from getting into our system slower. We don't want to generate these big, huge spikes in insulin that then says, hey, I need something to take care of this. So fiber is a very nice thing to sort of regulate how things get into our system. The other thing is the processed, where are we? Refined carbs, starchy carbs. We have so refined and purified our flours that when they hit our gut, they're so fine, so pure, so refined that they can blast through our gut very, very quickly and get into our system, and once again cause an insulin spike. So we're looking at trying to get rid of the low fiber stuff, add a little bit more fiber to your diet, just a little. And also trying to get rid of the refined starchy stuff, because if you think about it, the whole grains have more fiber. The whole rice, the wild rice, the cracked wheats and barleys have more fiber. So that goes back to this section. The processed stuff is just like when you said crap. So unfortunately, all that stuff tastes so good. Oh. And then finally, the added sugars we don't really need anymore. So we try to calm ourselves down on the added sugars, but this is the big bad one that I really try to keep out of my diet, especially since I've been spending time with Winnie. So this is my roommate, by the way. So yeah, we've known each other for, what'd you say, 22 years, 20 years? Like that. So anyway, where were we?
Oh.
Yes,
Back to me?
I think we're back to you.
Dan,
Alright.
just for clarification, does fat help with insulin regulation? I know fiber.
Oils and fats
Okay.
do, yeah. Because once again, so your body, fats, proteins, and carbs, your body can use fats. So of these three things, carbs have about 7 calories per gram of carbs. Protein has about the same, it's about 7 calories per gram. Fat is a little bit more food dense, it has about 9 calories per gram. So there's a lot of calories in fat. But if I throw each one of these things into you, your body prefers to use carbs. It'll use those absolutely first. And then, because it's already breaking down the proteins, it'll go through that and the fat, and it'll start to use those. If I have no carbs in my body, did you leave the fasting slides in here? I sent the presentation I sent you?
Yeah.
Are they in there somewhere?
I don't maybe.
Okay, because they were right after this. But
Probably.
I was going to talk about fasting a little bit.
Go
Is-
ahead.
Okay. So when we're talking about fat, it helps regulate that insulin spike, but if I don't, we were talking about fasting earlier, if I don't get any food at all, my body looks at me and says, okay, it takes you back to like caveman era.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't gotten any food today. Tomorrow, I need to go out and hunt and find myself some food. So first of all, with zero food, your body will ramp itself up a little bit and increase your metabolism ever so slightly. There was a study done back in the 70s called actually the Minnesota Starvation Study, where they took a bunch of people and took them down to 300 to 400 calories a day, which was considered a starvation level. The only thing they found was these people's metabolism regulated itself down to 300 or 400 calories. They became very lethargic, very blah, and they were incredibly food focused. That's all they ever wanted to see. Now, if you take somebody down to zero food, they will be for a few days food focused. I've done this for a few times before. I do some periodic fasting. But after a while, like smoking a cigarette, if you quit smoking, you're going to have a nasty, nasty craving, but the longer you quit smoking, the lower that craving will be. The same with food. You release 2 hormones regularly during the day called ghrelin and leptin that start your hunger metabolism. And so the first day that I quit eating, those hormones come out in the morning and I go, I'm hungry. If I can sustain for 15, 20 minutes, the craving goes away. At lunch, it's going to come back. If I don't feed it, it goes away. At supper time, it'll come back. If I don't feed it, it goes away. By the second or third day, those cravings are very, very minimal. They still cycle, but I'm getting rid of those cravings. Now my body needs something to function. So what it's going to do is my chemistry set is going to go out and grab fat. Fat is a wonderful energy storage. So it brings in the fat and it turns the fat into glucose. It's called gluconeogenesis. Gluco meaning sugar, neo meaning new, genesis meaning to make. So your liver makes glucose out of fat. The cool thing is, though, that it also makes ketones or ketone bodies. So you'll find somebody that's been fasting for a while may have a very sweet-smelling breath, kind of like nail polish remover. That's what some people attribute it to. It's ketone bodies is what you get in your body. The interesting thing is, though, that your brain functions, every muscle in your body and everything in your body works with glucose. Your brain is the one thing that works on ketones. Now, if you're eating a regular diet, you don't have any ketones in your system. You're plenty of glucose, everything works. Now, as soon as you start to fast, you start breaking down that fat, or if you go on the Atkins diet, because you have no carbs, you just have fat and protein, your body will start to make a lot of extra ketones. So people that fast, and one of these things is you should always talk to your physician before you do this. You want to make sure that you throw in that little tidbit, but talk to your physician before you fast. But people that fast will regularly say, oh, I haven't eaten all day, I'm feeling super jittery because I'm hypoglycemic, which means low blood sugar. Honestly, they are probably Now they could go get that tested if they want to. But what happens is your body pumps out all these ketones. The ketones go to your brain, and your brain goes, woohoo! It's speed for your brain. So yes, you are now firing on all 12, and you're thinking great, you're sharp, but you're also like, I'm not used to this. I'm feeling very jittery. And that is usually the ketones going to feed your brain, and then the glucose going to feed your muscles and the rest of your body. That's kind of the little tidbit on fasting. And fasting also, because you're not entering any carbs into your system, you're preventing those insulin spikes. So you level off your insulin level, and people that are seeing insulin resistance can actually see their insulin levels come down to the point where now their body responds to lower levels of insulin. So over a longer term fast or periodic fasting, for 12 hours or maybe 18 hours, you can get up to 24 hours as a good long fast. They end up sort of resetting their insulin resistance by doing that. But it's an interesting feeling in your head to be able to all of a sudden get this, wow, I'm feeling really jittery. Well, I'm also feeling a lot more focused, and I'm getting a lot more done when I do this. And I'm not wasting, time eating. But anyway.
Energy isn't in your gut, it's in your brain.
It is.
Interesting. Well, I think those slides are right.
We'll see. We'll see.
My favorite food. I know, it's the world's most perfect food right here. So I just wanted to get back to what the healthy versions of these diets look like. And honestly, this first picture, all the colorful, naturally colorful foods, that's a vegan diet. It's a whole food diet. It's a plant-based diet. That's kind of what it should look like. The one next to it that's got the meat and the dairy in there, that's a healthy keto diet, right? Lean meats are included. So food science and use, let's get back to you. There's so much to learn. Like, clearly, I don't know what Dan can learn, but I'm sure it's something. I learn a lot from everyone I talk to, so it's always fun to have conversations with new people. And your path to healthier is unique. It's not my path. It's not Dr. Mel's path. It's whatever your path turns out to be to make you live a healthier lifestyle, feel healthier. I recommend to try different things. Listen to the clues your body gives you. It'll tell you if it's the wrong choice for you. If a keto diet's the wrong choice for you, your body will let you know, okay? Yeah, I don't know where those slides went, Dan, sorry. So we have some recommendations for you if you want to research or read a little bit more. So your favorite book is called The Obesity Code.
That book, Dr. Jason Fung is a nephrologist. He's a kidney physician. And that book was rated by the New York Times as the best book with the worst title. But it goes into the history of the FDA and the food pyramid, and then he talks about a number of the things that reduce insulin spiking, and he has a good section in there on periodic fasting as well.
And then your podcast 994.
Dom D'Agostino is a big proponent. I forget, he's a Florida physician, but he's a big proponent of keto dieting. And I don't really like to call it dieting. I just would maybe call it a keto lifestyle. Because he definitely doesn't diet. You should hear the things he eats when he does that. Joe Rogan does a ton of podcasts. He's basically transitioned from TV into doing a bunch of those things. But Dr. Dom is a wonderful read, and he has been on a keto lifestyle for 10, 15 years, along with his wife. He and his wife both do that on a regular basis. He also talks about a lot of endogenous ketones. You can go off of a ketone diet by basically eating a big plate of pasta, and poof, it puts you out of ketosis. And there are fuels you can use, basically supplements that will generate more ketones in your body and put you back into ketosis instead of taking the 2 or 3 days necessary of cutting out carbs to get back there. It's an interesting gig.
One of the first books that I read when I started to understand my high fructose corn syrup, A, addiction, and B, allergy, was called The Sugar Fix, Dr. Richard Johnson. Really, really good. It talks about how the American diet is full of sugar, kind of like Dan talked about. And this is where I started. I think that was about 4 or 5 years ago. I was only 10 pounds heavier than I am now, but I was 4 dress sizes bigger. And I know I'm short, that's a thing. But again, mimics liver failure and that bloat of somebody who's in liver failure. Yeah, I can spot people walking down the street and I know they have got the same thing. But where I am today, 5 years later, is just a few months ago I started researching the intersection between veganism and feminism. So when you just keep learning. That's where I am today. Huh?
There's a rabbit hole for everything.
There's a rabbit hole over everything. Exactly. So ways to start your path to being a healthier you is I recommend cook for yourself, right? Choose the food instead of the convenience of the food. Choose the apple instead of the apple juice, right? Wander a farmer's market. Ask them questions. They love for you to pick something up and say, what is this? How do I eat this? Some things are weird there. I love asking questions. Pay attention to what should be in season. We have a 24/7, round-the-clock food supply these days. This is not how we should be eating. Seasonal foods have the vitamins, minerals, what you need to go into the winter season, to come out of the winter into the longer, brighter summers. It's amazing if you want to start researching that. That's what I talked about last time. But pay attention to what should be in season for the climate that we live in. CSAs, support those community-supported agriculture. Buy into a crop share. You get fresh food all the time, right? And they give you instructions and recipes. Organic markets and co-ops, they're very educated about where their food comes from, the history of the food, the farms and all that, and then also produce, organic food. I love it. So why I keep holding this is always, there's two different things. It's supposed to be the world's most perfect food because it's almost allowed in every diet you can think of, and it's also said to be the only mistake that God ever made was the avocado because he made the pit too big. So I love avocados. So takeaways: less added sugar, less refined carbs, no crack.
Which stands for again?
Carbon rich and processed, or calorie rich and processed. Healthy fats are okay. They're okay. Avocados, oils. I have friends that are on a whole food plant-based diet. They won't do oils, but that's beyond my knowledge. Healthy carbs, fruit and vegetables. They're great. Eat them. Carbs are fine. You need them. Lean proteins, more whole foods. Try and do that outside rim of the grocery store, right? Don't overdo your proteins, like Dan said. Protective fibers. Again, the apple versus the apple juice. Periodic fasting. So I put a little qualifier in there. It's Dan's favorite, but Winnie's not on board yet. And I think that's it. I think that's all we have. So thank you guys. Yay! So everything over there is for us to eat. So let's go eat. And there's wine.
And there's wine.
Oh, man.
Yay! Thank you.
Michael's excited.
This is my baby girl, everybody.
Who's even smaller than her mama.
I bet.
I have a tape musician question.
That comes in. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions, you can, of course, reach out to me, Dr. Mel, at Inspire Life Chiropractic Center, and Michael. And thanks for tuning into this. And if you have, again, any questions, leave us a comment below what you thought. And as always, keep inspiring. See you later.
It's so